Hey, speak for yourself, listeners. Before we start the show, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com. Reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, are just one click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. So download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com. Now, let's start the show.
Hey, I'm Marcellus Wiley.
Say it again, bro.
Hello, I'm Marcellus Wiley. Boy, sometimes you even know it.
You look good. America.
Marcellus Wiley, I don't know what it is about 2021, bro, but you look good. You look chiseled like you're in playing shape. It's going to be a good show for you. They haven't been in days leading up to this, but today's going to be a great show for you, Marcellus.
That was a new word, chiseled right there. It's a great year, 2021, because I've lost 20 or 21 pounds. So let's get it going. My man, Emmanuel Acho. Our top story is delivered by Pizza Hut. Order today at pizzahut.com. Well, there goes my weight loss. All right, Lamar Jackson, who led the Ravens in his first playoff win with 315 total yards against the Titans. But on the other side, my Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen had 3 total touchdowns against the Colts for his first playoff win. The first-round picks from the 2018 NFL Draft will face off Saturday in Buffalo. Allen praised Lamar yesterday, but said, quote, "We're enemies on Saturday, and we both know that." So, Acho, which quarterback is under more pressure, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen?
My dog. Some days I come to this show prepared to argue with you.
I've noticed.
But some days I come to this show ready to discuss with you.
Okay.
And this A-block, I'm ready to have a discussion because this topic, it can go either way. I'm going to lay out my points. You're going to lay out yours. We shall see where we land.
Do it.
The quarterback under more pressure is Lamar Jackson. That's where I will start.
Okay.
And I say Lamar Jackson because the bar is higher for Lamar Jackson. You and I, we love several sports, but the one sport we both have an affinity towards is track and field because it's so easy to quantify.
Yes.
In the NFL, there's some things that are subjective. Who really contributed to the success? NBA, how important was this player versus that player? In track and field, though, everything is black and white. It is as clear as day.
Racial.
So how does this have to do with Lamar Jackson? There's a certain event in track and field called the high jump.
Okay, let's do it.
And depending on how high of a bar you've already cleared, that is now the starting height, if you will, when you go into other meets following that. Lamar Jackson has already cleared a height that Josh Allen has yet to clear.
Okay.
Unanimous MVP. He's already cleared a height, top 2 quarterback or best quarterback for a season that Josh Allen has yet to clear. So who's under more pressure? Lamar Jackson is under more pressure because even if they have the same amount of success this year, it will be deemed a bigger failure for Lamar Jackson because he has already ascended to greater heights. If I can use a track and field analogy again, if Marcellus, you and I have both cleared 7 feet in the high jump. If you and I both go out at 6 feet 6 inches, it's if I clear 7 feet and you've only ever cleared 6 feet 6 inches, if you and I both go out at 6 feet 6 inches, it's a bigger disappointment for me because I've already cleared 7 feet, if you will. I've cleared a higher height. So when I look at Lamar Jackson and when I look at Josh Allen, Lamar's under more pressure again because Josh Allen, if the season were to end today for both of them, the narrative would be this. Josh Allen, wow, he has overachieved. Josh Allen, second in the MVP race. Josh Allen, 43, 45 touchdowns. Josh Allen, a miraculous season. Look at how much he is ascending. But the narrative for Lamar Jackson would be, man, Lamar was a unanimous MVP last year. Yeah, I mean, he won a playoff game, but that's it? Like a unanimous MVP, he can't get past the first round of the playoffs? The narrative for both of these quarterbacks would be different. Lamar under more pressure because Lamar's achieved more.
Boy, you tried to tug at my heartstrings. That entire block. Track example after track example. That means you ain't ready for this discussion. You want to call it a discussion. Usually losing arguments want to discuss. Because you know what? I can't argue you, big dog. I can't shoot you today, so guess what? Let's hug. I ain't hugging you, dog. I know how you flip.
You that dude, bro. I came in here to show love, and you hit my hand down.
Nope, because I know how it's a thin line between love and hate, and you're going to flip on me next segment. So I'm going to bring the pain right now. You know it's Josh Allen.
Okay.
Let's just go here. Both of these guys are getting criticized for different reasons and hyper-criticized at that because they're both great quarterbacks. And we know that the cost of praise is criticism. So let's start there.
Yes,
Now we have to distinguish and differentiate Lamar from Josh Allen. One is a unanimous MVP, and one was in the MVP conversation.
Yes, sir.
So let's go back to your track example. The pressure, to me, is on the one who needs to qualify, who needs to graduate, who needs to get his numbers to a point where he can even be in the finals. And guess what? Josh Allen, you haven't qualified yet. The history books will always remember Lamar Jackson as of right now.
That's true.
In comparison to Josh Allen.
That's true.
Josh Allen has one historical nugget out there, but we won't forget about Lamar Jackson already. And guess what? They came out in the same draft, but they didn't come out at the same time. One was the number 7 overall pick, and one was the number 32 overall pick. Which one is overachieved? Acho, you said in your discussion that Josh Allen's overachieved. At the number 7 overall pick in the same draft, I would beg to differ. I would think it was Lamar Jackson at the number 2 overall pick that actually overachieved. But let me give you the reasons the expectations are higher for Josh Allen in Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills are the higher seed. True or false?
True.
Duh. More wins this year. Buffalo are...
Buffalo.
Oh, you love me now. Number 2 seed with a 13-3 record and a division title versus a number 5 seed with 11-5 record and a wild card. You know there's pressure on the number 2 seeds. Why? Because in the AFC, the number 2 seeds have won the Super Bowl each of the last 2 years. Josh Allen, you have put yourself in the way of a conversation that says, with this record, with this type of team, with that seed, why can't you win it all? Think about it. Let's fast forward. Let's say he fails in this moment and loses to the Ravens. Next year, when they go out there and win 13 games again, what are we going to say? Y'all did this last year. Pressure mounting. I don't see how this team could even get better. Maybe in some specific areas, but in totality, a 13-3 record. You finally win a division. It's been since 1995 you've won a division. You finally win a playoff game. It's been since 1995 you've done that. All of that sounds like pressure that will be a huge disappointment if Josh Allen doesn't show up in this game.
You left some glaring areas for me to attack, but again, no. I told you.
Oh, not today.
I entered this show out of love.
Okay.
And I'm going to stay there.
All right.
So I'm not going to attack your weaknesses just yet unless I have to. I'm going to attack this. Let's go micro.
Okay.
So let's talk about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson individually. Coming into the season, Lamar Jackson was here, and Josh Allen was a few rungs below him. But then over the course of the season, we've now seen Lamar Jackson is declining for how great Lamar Jackson was.
Should I let that word go, declining?
It's literal.
Yeah,
literally, he is, right? Like, figuratively, no, but literally,
he's rearranged his game, but I understand what you're saying.
It doesn't sound great, but literally, I'm right. Like, his numbers are declining.
It just hurts to hear it.
It does. But his numbers show that, in theory, he's declining. He was just so elite last year.
You're right.
Josh Allen, however, is ascending. And ascending at a rapid rate. Dude had 20-plus touchdowns last year. This year, he's in the 40s. So when you look at the two of them, one is either plateauing based upon his statistical success of last year, and the other is ascending exponentially. And so, Sal, for me, it's just very, very, very simple. Lamar Jackson, he's looking at this dude, Josh Allen, who is skyrocketing to become the best quarterback in that class. You got Baker Mayfield, you got Sam Darnold, you got Lamar Jackson.
Stop mentioning everybody else.
What the hell are you talking about?
He's skyrocketing. The only way that Lamar Jackson can put a pause on that, can try to put this fire out, is if you go out there and you win that head-to-head matchup. And that, to me, says pressure. Because if they lose, if the Ravens lose, all of a sudden it's, wait a second now, Lamar Jackson, you're not even the best quarterback in the class. I thought you were. Baker wasn't in the conversation. Darnold surely isn't in the conversation. Josh Allen, prior to this year, not even mentioned in the conversation. It was all about you, Lamar. So now if he goes out there and loses to the Bills, all of a sudden Josh Allen takes the throne as the best quarterback in that class. That, to me, is also another layer of pressure.
I did like that. The second lap, you started to come out. You're sneaky, though. You throwing rocks and hiding your hands. Talking about, I ain't fighting back. I see how you doing. You got something behind your back right there. Okay, let's talk about the word pressure.
Yes, sir.
And put it right back on Josh Allen.
Please.
This is why. The Bills are the favorites to win the game. Go to Vegas right now. You're a gambler. You're always in Vegas, at least in your mind you are. The hell? You go there, they're saying the Bills should win this game. That's pressure because you're expected to win. The number 5 seed, which are the Ravens, they haven't won a Super Bowl since 2007. So being real, think about
Ravens?
it. Yeah.
1-12.
They're number 5 seed. Huh?
Oh, as a 5 seed?
As a 5 seed.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh, you really want to fight now?
No,
huh?
I didn't want to let you slide. I didn't want to let you slide. You said the Ravens haven't won since 07, but
you need to talk to Elias Sports Bureau because that's where I live.
Go ahead, sir, go ahead.
The number 5 seed hasn't won a Super Bowl, right?
Yes, sir.
Since 2007.
Yes, sir.
So guess what? If you slot it as the number 5, kind of like the NCAA Final Four and March Madness, kind of by your seeding, people have expectations. Pressure. Let's talk about how you said Josh Allen had the better individual season. That means finish the deal. Kind of like what Lamar faced last year as a 14-2 number 1 seed.
Yes, sir.
Finish the deal, right? So last year, this would have been a conversation where I would have been with you, Lamar Jackson. Hey, man, y'all 14-2, what the hell you doing? You need to finish that, and they didn't. Let's talk about the Bills. Never won a Super Bowl in their 61 seasons of existence. I take some of that blame as well as a former Buffalo Bill. But that's pressure, man. I played in Buffalo. It's pressure. Once you get into the playoffs, hey, man, you talk about a drought. Go ahead and quench our thirst. Bills have not won a playoff game, I said, in 22 seasons. Meanwhile, in those 22 seasons, guess what the Ravens have done? Won 15 playoff games in that same stretch. Kind of routine for them. So in the whole scope of things, everything is looking at Josh Allen and this miraculous season and this tremendous season of ascent for him to finish the deal. If you don't finish the deal, it's partly because of the pressure and expectations that's on you.
I respect that, but
Come on.
you keep bringing this up, so now I got to push back. I didn't want to. I told you I was gonna leave the weakness alone.
What did I tell you too when you said that at first? You ain't gonna last.
But it's been 11 minutes. For love, I was all love for 11 minutes.
Oh,
let me fight.
applaud a fish for swimming, as you would say.
Let me fight. When you get into the playoffs, we all know it's 0-0.
Yeah,
Records are 0-0.
That's real.
So I think seeding is irrelevant. And so if seeding is one of your primary arguments, here's why I think it's relevant. Let's talk basketball before we go track, because some people are like, stop talking track and field. Stop talking track and field.
Well, forget them.
Facts. Remember when LeBron James was either with the Cavs or the Miami Heat?
Yeah.
Didn't always have the 1 seed.
Yeah.
He didn't. But every time he got to the playoffs, it was like, hey, Bron, you're the best player in the league. And therefore, you probably have an accumulation of talent, especially in your Heat years, where you have the best team in the league. So I don't care what seeding you have. You are the most talented with the most talented. I want to see you win. Let's talk track and field. Before you ever get to the finals of a race, you have to go through prelims and semis.
Yeah.
Semifinals dictate your seeding for finals.
Yeah.
You may stumble in the semifinals.
Okay.
You may trip, or if it's a relay race, you may have a bad baton exchange. So you may not get the preferred seeding or preferred lane, as track and field would describe it, in the finals. But I don't care what your seeding is. Usain Bolt, fastest man to have ever lived.
That's real.
If you get to the finals, even if you are the 8th seed, if you will, you're the fastest. I don't care what your seeding is, Lamar Jackson. You're a unanimous MVP. You've gotten to the finals. That's the playoffs. So I don't care whether you were the 2 seed, the 3 seed, the 4 seed, or the 5 seed. You are supposed to be the fastest man. Let's now parallel and let's tangent to the NFC. The Buccaneers have a worse seed than the Washington football team. The Buccaneers had a worse seed than the Seattle Seahawks. But I promise you, the Buccaneers are under more pressure, and I think you and I would agree to that, than Washington was. And the Buccaneers were under more pressure than the Seattle Seahawks were. So I just don't love the fact that the Bills are a 2 seed, meaning that Josh Allen and the Bills have more pressure than Lamar being the
I like all that, except the last 2 years, the 2 seed has won the Super Bowl. So it's like that 2 seed is something special. And it's different than the NBA, and it's different than in the track. And in the NBA, if you talk to a basketball player quietly in some private closed-door conversation, they would say, dog, all we need to be is top 4 seed. Why? Because then we have home court, right? So in this situation, I don't know when LeBron James, as you brought up, was ever a number 5 seed. Like 5 is a whole different animal. So don't give me NBA comparisons. Don't give me track comparisons either, because you all run the same distance in track. Like, think about it. In the NFL, when you are the number 5 seed, guess what you're doing? You are not traveling the same distance. You're not sleeping in your own bed. You are on the road games. You have a different circumstance to deal with because of the lesser seed. But maybe seed is not the way to attack this for you. Obviously, it's not because of the greater team is expected to win. Let's talk about support. Let's talk about balance. Josh Allen has less support from his running game than Lamar Jackson. Okay, so if you look at it from that position, there's going to be more pressure on you, literally, Josh Allen, to perform. Think about this. Josh Allen nearly had a perfect game, right? We saw it. No turnovers, close, but no turnovers, 70% completion percentage, 300-plus passing yards, and still only won by 3 points because so much is on his shoulders. So much is on his throwing arm versus Lamar Jackson. Well, Lamar Jackson go out there, not play a pretty game, do it any way he wants to, but get the job done. Less expectations, also less pressure. Josh Allen has a worse defense than Lamar Jackson. So guess what? My defense is not as good. My running game is not as good. Guess what? When they run through the tunnel, and I ran through that tunnel for 4 years, boy. And there were some times when I ran through that tunnel, they were like, there go Wiley. Guess what? That's nothing in comparison when they say, Josh Allen, savior, win the game. Because you don't have the same level of defense. You don't have the same level of running game.
I like that. Sal,
come on, man.
Growing up in my young Nigerian household, you got to educate me on young black culture. I'm going to talk about young Nigerian culture real quick. When we would eat rice and stew. Right?
And you already missed us. we just had rice.
We would eat rice and stew, and the rice and stew would also come with some chicken on it. And the thing about me is I would always save the chicken for last because it was the best part.
Hey, you go last?
I say the chicken.
Okay, well, we go the best first.
You get the chicken first? Yeah. I'm saving
chicken.
I'm saving the chicken for last.
Talk to me.
The best part of my take, I'm saving for last.
Oh, really?
I'm saving the best part of my take.
This chicken stew, y'all.
Let me give it to you like this.
What?
Let's talk about expectations. Let's talk about the Pygmalion effect. Let's talk about self-fulfilling prophecy.
You going here?
I'm going there. Let's talk about Lamar Jackson is fighting a larger scale expectations of who he's supposed to be and how well he can succeed. How well can that style of play succeed?
Yeah.
We've never in the NFL see a running quarterback. What do I mean by that? A quarterback who is better with his legs than with his arm, threatening the defense. That is Lamar Jackson. We've never seen a quarterback who is better with his legs, threatening the defense than with his arms, win it all. Now, we saw a man by the name of Robert Griffin. He came into the league. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year. He went to the playoffs. Phenomenal job. We saw Michael Vick in his 4th year, went to the NFC Conference Championship game. We saw Cam Newton in his 5th year. He went to the Super Bowl. They got close. Cam Newton got closest. Lamar Jackson, we've now seen win a playoff game, but Lamar Jackson is under more pressure because there is already a stigma that you can't win it all with Lamar's style of play. I brought up the word Pygmalion effect. That's a saying in psychology. Now let me break it down. All it is very simply self-fulfilling prophecy. Lamar Jackson, we don't anticipate that you can win with your style of play. So now we're going to act that you can't win with your style of play. You're going to go out there and you are not going to win with your style of play, which is only going to reinforce our initial thought that, wait a second, Lamar, you can't win with your style of play. So who's under more pressure for me? If we really gonna be real, it comes down to the fact that don't nobody really expect Lamar Jackson to be able to win it all like he plays because we've never seen it. You have great general managers who I'm not going to name because they your dog, who initially didn't think Lamar Jackson could play the NFL quarterback position.
I heard him.
Now Lamar Jackson has proved everybody wrong, but it's still Lamar Jackson. Can you win like this? I think realistically, bro, Lamar will always be under more pressure because many are praying for his downfall, and he's already proved a ton of them wrong.
Oh, you went there. In case of emergency, break glass.
And I broke it.
You broke it. And then you know what's in there? What'd you say? You went racial. You basically went racial.
I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I didn't. I said nothing about race.
No, you
nothing
didn't.
About color.
But it was like, Vanna White, when she just turned over one letter at a time. It was like, give me an R. And you're like, okay, well, let me get a C. Let me buy a vowel. A. You went racial.
Hey, would you like to
would you like to say it? And you see RACIAL. In case of emergency, break glass, but be careful. You might hurt your hand trying to reach for what you were grabbing for.
might.
Talk to me. Have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Steve Young?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't he qualify for everything you just said?
No, sir.
And I understand sometimes when you go that argument of mobile quarterbacks, I understand the perception. Sometimes it's, you let the paint job fool you. You start to see a black quarterback run, and you're just like, that's the only way that happens. And Steve Young, who had 537 rushing yards before in a season, back in the early 90s, when it was taboo, how dare you run the ball, had 6 rushing touchdowns before in the 90s when they were like taboo. Where Lamar Jackson has 7 this year. Think about it. Like, Steve Young was doing this 20, 30, 40 years ago, it feels like. And people were like, what the hell is that? And it almost seems like amnesia took over the entire NFL as if he doesn't qualify. And the reason I bring him up is because he won it all. And I'm not trying to have that debate. It's just that I have never thought that Lamar Jackson couldn't win it all by his style of play. All I knew is he didn't have, and he still doesn't, being real, the receiving core necessary to really bring out all of his talents. But don't forget, he led the NFL last year in passing touchdowns.
From the pocket at that.
Hey, including white quarterbacks. Like, everybody. Lamar Jackson. So it never has entered my head, despite people trying to beat me up in perception, that Lamar Jackson couldn't get the deal done. But back to the original conversation.
Yes, sir.
Come on, man. This is a situation where Josh Allen is almost living in a parallel universe, the same one that Lamar Jackson was living in last year. And we saw how all that pressure burst into expectations and criticism for Lamar Jackson. All I'm trying to do is give Josh Allen an opportunity to know it's coming. If you don't finish with the better team, if you don't finish with the better record, and if you don't finish the deal with the better seed. That's all I got to say. Woo, we went everywhere, y'all. Coming up at the top of the hour, I like discussions. James Harden took a shot at his team after getting blown out last night. We'll tell you if he's hurt his reputation this season. But first, Tom Brady, the GOAT, has been on fire. We'll tell you if the Saints should fear the GOAT. That's next. Speak for yourself.
What's up, Speak for Yourself listeners? It's your boy Shay Sharp, co-host of FS1's Undisputed. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay Shay, where we always do something before 2 something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now, back to Speak for Yourself.
Beat the Saints for the 3rd time this season, Sunday on Fox. Now, Tampa's 0-2 against their division rival, and Tom Brady threw 5 interceptions in those games. But since getting blown out by New Orleans back in November, Brady has thrown 22 touchdown passes with only 5 picks, prompting Yahoo to write that the Saints have to deal with the Brady everybody feared. Sounds good. So, Marcellus, should the Saints fear Tom Brady?
Oh, yes, it's time to fear Tom Brady because this is Tom Brady time. Think about it in 2 ways. One, that name, Tom Brady. Like, that's kind of close to the most generic name you could have. like if you don't know who he is and what he's done in life, if you're, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Tom Brady. You're like, I don't know what to think of you. That is bland.
That is a very basic name.
That is basic. I mean, we're football players. We've seen some names where you're like, yo, you already think he's good just by his name.
Facts.
Right? Tom Brady says nothing to you. But you know what? In the playoffs, because of what he's done over his 21-year career, Tom Brady speaks volumes, and it speaks the loudest in these moments right here. Think about that. Whereas my name is Marcellus Wiley. You hear that? You're like, excuse me? Marcellus Wiley, that sounds like a name. But ask me my name in the playoffs. It means nothing. Donut, jump. This is how many games I won. That's the point. Pick number 199 is number 1 when it comes to playoff time. The most decorated, the most accolade player in NFL history is this guy, Tom Brady. Now, why do I bring that up? Because he made his name. They didn't give him love. He had a bland name. He was a pick 199. He earned everything in terms of respect and reputation. And that's what the Saints are going to see. The Saints are not dumb either. They know that they're not playing the same team they played in week 1 and not the same team they played in week 9. Let's be real about that. Week 1 and week 9, especially week 9, good Lord, did Tom Brady stink up the joint? What do you want? 22 of 38, passer rating of 40. That's it, not 140, y'all. 40. Tom Brady and his receivers and his coaches, they had to come to a head and agreement. Look, we got to get on the same page. Pre-snap motion. You know, Bruce Arians didn't like pre-snap motion, working with Peyton Manning over the years. He said Peyton Manning didn't like pre-snap motion, so he was like, I kind of understand where you're coming from. Tom Brady was like, no, that helps me understand what the defense is doing. Is it zone? Is it man? It helps me dictate tempo and dictate routes, etc. So they had to come to an understanding after week 9. So week 1, throw it away, because that's week 1. From a virtual offseason, week 1, throw it away. Week 9, you're still not playing Brady's way. After week 9, all of a sudden, things start to click. What was happening in week 9? You saw AB come off the streets after a year off from football, shows up, and it's not AB. But who is AB now compared to AB in week 9? Who are the Bucs now compared to what they were in week 9? That's the difference. If you don't respect that maturation, that growth from this team versus a Saints team, let's be real, not looking as good as their record, not looking as good as they should. That's what I think is going to happen in this ball game. You're going to see Tom Brady at his best and the Saints trying to figure that out on the fly. Good luck to the Saints.
The Saints should absolutely not fear Tom Brady, big dog. And I'm very much so reminded of a Disney movie, if we shall. Marcellus, you, one of your favorite movies, I know you come on the show, you watch with your kids.
Lion King?
The Lion King.
Oh.
Can I get a Mufasa voice, please?
Simba.
Thank you. And you brought up the person Simba. Simba, remember, they were walking through some part of the jungle, and I think Zazu, whoever, was like, hey, don't go over there, Simba. It's dangerous. And what did Simba say? I laugh in the face of danger.
Oh. Yeah, he did.
That's what the Saints is about to do.
Oh.
They about to laugh in the face of Tom Brady. Now, we've for so long on this show brought up how much the Buccaneers struggled against the Saints. But why don't we turn that on its head and talk about how much the Saints have dominated the Buccaneers compared to everybody else? Let's look at the Saints versus the Bucs this season. Points per game allowed. All others, the Saints give up 21 points a game. But versus the Bucs, Saints only give up 13 points a game. Net yards allowed versus everybody else, Saints give up 313 yards. But versus the Saints, versus the Bucs, rather, they only give up 250. Usually the Saints, they'll force a turnover and a half a game. But against the Bucs, they force 3 turnovers a game. If I'm the Saints, I'm licking my chops to play Tom Brady. I'm like, wait a second. I get to play Tom Brady? Not I have to. Like, I'm eager for this matchup because in the game of football, it is 11 on 11. It's a team game, but you know this better than anybody because you're in a defensive line, and that's a game of individual matchup.
Yes.
If everybody wins their individual matchup, if one person beats one person, collectively, you'll win your cumulative matchups. I look at the individual matchups for this game, the Saints win. Malcolm Jenkins versus Tom Brady. Malcolm Jenkins starting safety for the Saints. He's 5-2 versus Brady, big dog.
Okay.
Marshawn Lattimore, every time he sees Mike Evans, it's a wrap. So if you're looking at the Saints, they win their individual matchups, therefore they will win the team matchup. Like Simba, the Saints should laugh in the face of danger.
Did you keep watching the movie after that?
I stopped for a reason.
Because you take naps during football games. Did you take a nap during the Lion King?
Get to your take.
This is my take. You know what happened with Simba, right?
I understand.
Lost his damn daddy, had to go in refuge. It didn't work out well for Simba until the end of that. And it's not going to work out well for these Saints either. Let's talk about Tom Brady right now. Let's talk about Tom Brady in this moment, because his last 5 weeks, first in NFL yards per attempt, first in yards per game, first in passing touchdowns, and second in passer rating. Meanwhile, let's talk about you, Drew Brees, and how have you been in the playoffs of late? I can't even say this year because, you did beat the Bears, but wasn't that a little bit of a struggle compared to our expectations? A little bit, but let's talk about his last 5 playoff games and add them all up. Losing record. Oh, really? 2-3. Drew Brees in the last 5 playoff games. And total touchdowns, 10. Turnovers, 6. Drew Brees, Mr. Efficient. Mr. I protect the ball. Mr. This is a precision offense. Mr. I was the 3rd best quarterback on the field last time you saw me in the playoffs. That's who he's going against right now. Like Drew Brees coming off an injury last year, coming off an injury this year. I just haven't seen Drew Brees with the fastball, the hot one down the middle like I used to seeing. I'm seeing a little off of Drew Brees, and I'm seeing a lot more of Tom Brady, the terrific Tom of old, in these moments right now. That's what I'm seeing. As you said, Josh Allen coming up to Lamar Jackson. I'm seeing right now Tampa Bay coming up to the Saints. But this one, the Saints are either trying to stay pat or are actually a little bit in decline in terms of their offensive production. You got to get into a shootout with Tom Brady with this offense, the way that they're clicking right now. I don't think it's going to go well for the Saints.
I like that, but here's one problem. I know you told me that you don't play spades, right? Card games.
I'm not good at spades.
But you understand the game of spades.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
So in spades, typically people play with jokers, right? There's a big joker, there's a little joker.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't decipher which joker is big or not, depending on the deck of cards that you get. It'd be like that.
You can't tell that was big. That was
be like that. So you came out here, and I think you thought you laid down the big joker when you told me about Drew Brees' last 5 playoff starts. But I got a problem for you, big dog.
That was a little joker?
That was a little joker.
What you got?
I didn't even want to use this note. I literally told my producer, I said, hey, Tasha, put it at the bottom of the page. I don't need this. But then you came out here with this little joker, and you know what happens. Big bank.
What?
It takes a little bank. Last 5 playoff games for Tom Brady.
Deuce is wild. That's on this page, right? The 2s are bigger. Coming up. All right, go ahead.
Last 5 playoff games for Tom Brady, 4 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So you told me Drew Brees has 10 in his last 5 to 6 turnovers. Brady has 4 to 4. Brady's last 2 playoff games of 54% completion percentage. I just had to take that book real quick. I just had to take that little joker.
Got me
real
sweating
quick.
up here. I got to do my makeup mid-show.
My final and last real take.
What you got?
If you're the Saints, let's talk about what playoff teams in the NFC are remaining. The Green Bay Packers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Los Angeles Rams. Now, you've played the Packers before and they beat you, so I don't want that. You haven't played the Rams, so I don't want what's behind mystery box number 1, but you've also played and beaten and dominated the Buccaneers 2 times. So if you ask me, should the Saints fear Tom Brady? Well, you probably should fear Aaron Rodgers because you lost to him. I have a little bit of fear of the unknown, and that's the Los Angeles Rams, so I might have some concern or fear around them, but I'm definitely not going to have no fear around a team and a player I've not only beaten, but dominated.
But be careful, because the Saints beat the Bucks once.
Twice.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
But didn't the Bucks play the Packers? Yeah.
You don't go with the fans of the
And did the Packers play the Saints?
If A is greater than B.
Oh, really? I don't know what card this is.
Then A is greater.
I don't know what this is. What is this? The Jack of Spades right here? But all I know is it doesn't make any sense. So now you have to start looking at trending lines. And the trending line for the Buccaneers, because they figured it out. Remember, you're talking about a situation in Green Bay with continuity. Virtual offseason for all, but continuity in Green Bay. Continuity in New Orleans. No continuity in Tampa. That's why you're seeing this late season surge that will eclipse the Saints going forward. I don't know what card that is. Coming up, it's a battle between Aarons, that means Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Donald. We'll tell you if the Rams can slow Rodgers down. That's next. Speak for yourself.
Hey, Speak for Yourself listeners. It's Charlotte Wilder here to tell you about my new podcast with Mark Titus called the People's Sports Podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and Mark and I take one of the big stories of the week, and then we go off on tangents you never saw coming. This might mean that we start talking about the Dodgers winning the World Series and end up wondering if Knicks fans deserve happiness. Or begin with LeBron's greatness and end up drafting our ultimate beer league softball team made up of old athletes. Whatever it is, the only rule of the show is that it has to be fun and funny, because these days we could all use as many laughs as we can get. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts and come down weird sports rabbit holes with us. We can't wait to have you. Now, back to Speak for Yourself.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. The Packers host the Rams Saturday on Fox. Aaron Rodgers threw a career-high 48 touchdowns this season and is the MVP frontrunner. But he's facing the number 1 total defense led by Aaron Donald. Donald is dealing with a rib injury, but yesterday, Sean McVay said, quote, unless something unforeseen happens, the Terminator will be ready. So, Acho, do you expect the Rams to slow down Aaron Rodgers? Slow down.
I do expect the Rams to slow him down, but before we get there, we said Tom Brady was a very basic name. It's a very non-intimidating name. Aaron Donald is also pretty non-intimidating.
It is.
Like, someone's like, yeah, I'm Aaron Donald. I'm like, oh, what financial bank do you work at? You know, I'm not very intimidating.
And then he does this. He's like, what the hell?
I'm sorry, Aaron. Look, I think the Rams will slow him down because who haven't the Rams slowed down this season? I'm a betting man, but I'm a betting man who works off of my eyes being my faith and seeing things things and making educated guesses. In 12 of the Rams' 17 games this season, they held opponents to under their point-per-game average. Remember, there are games like their Dolphins game in there where they had a fumble return for a touchdown and a punt return for a touchdown. Has nothing to do with the defense. So really, 13 out of 17 games, they held opponents to their under points-per-game average. The other thing I told y'all last block, which I firmly believe to be true, especially as a defender, yes, it's a team versus a team. It's never necessarily about the individuals, but it is about individual matchups. So the reason the Packers go is not just because of Aaron Rodgers, but because of Devontae Adams. Who does he have to go against? One dude by the name of Jalen Ramsey, who happens to shut down every receiver he goes against. Ramsey's gone against 6 Pro Bowl receivers this year. Well, really, he's gone against a Pro Bowl receiver 6 times. He's faced a couple guys twice. DK Metcalf, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Stephon Diggs. Y'all see the names. 6 games total, 10 receptions, 96 yards, and 1 touchdown. Jalen Ramsey's quietly having the best season of his illustrious career up to this point. So, do I see the Rams shutting them down? Yes, to a degree, as much as Aaron Rodgers and the Packers can and will be shut down all playoffs, because the Rams just have the people, they have the talent, they have the abilities to do so.
I don't think they're going to do anything. I think they're going to get beat down in this game, and just being real. And I love the Rams, but they're beat up. They're going to get beat down because they're beat up.
Fair.
Let's just look at the injuries before I even get into my full take. Jared Goff had thumb surgery. He's going to go out there and try to hand the ball off again. Or are you going to try to actually throw it this week? Oh, I forgot it's in Green Bay. Wonder if it's going to be cold. Wonder if your anchored thumb. Think about it. Holding the football, everybody holds the football. You can compromise some of these things. This one, And in the cold, we went to the beach yesterday, my family and I was just playing around with my little son. He can actually catch. Not bad. My wife, she sucks. She's horrible. And she kept saying, it's so hard. The ball's so hard. It was kind of cold last night. I was like, yeah, baby. So stop laughing when you see receivers drop it. We're going to laugh when Jared Goff is trying to throw in the cold with a compromised thumb. Let's talk about Aaron Donald and his ribs. Last time I checked, when you have rib injuries, it's hard to breathe. Oh, okay, but he's Aaron Donald. He's the Terminator. I get it. He's a whole different machine out there. But he takes a lot of double teams. He takes a lot of triple teams. Let's talk about combo blocks. Forget the just combo block where they pass you off and then and I don't care what kind of flak jacket you have on. 2, 3, 300-pound men hitting right here, and you're already coming in compromised. Good luck with that one. Cooper Kupp. Meaningless plays at the end of the game. All of a sudden, his knee goes out, and he's limping off the field. I just see too many injuries all around. But I have to push back in my first layer, get a little deeper dive. You said this number one defense hasn't slowed down.
Who haven't they slowed down?
Sir. That's what you said. Did you watch my Buffalo Bills when they played? Yeah, week 3. How'd that go? You want to hear Josh Allen against that same defense? How'd that go? 319 total yards, 5 total touchdowns, 128 passer rating. Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, which one you think is better right now?
Right now, they're about
Boy, stop. Gun to your head, which one you gonna pick?
Okay, there you go.
And guess what?
Why are you so violent?
Because I'm from where I'm from. All right, let's bring in Fox NFL analyst LeVar Arrington. So, LeVar, you expect the Rams to slow down Aaron Rodgers?
I do. I do expect them to slow Aaron Rodgers down. And it's interesting. Well, you think about this, right? Acho threw out Jalen Ramsey and talked about how he's having one of the best years that he's ever had. Well, it's interesting because when you go to the other side with Troy Hill is actually having a better year statistically than even Jalen Ramsey. So the secondary, the corners, have not given up a play more than 20 yards all season long. Like that is a very impressive stat. Okay, now when you think about this as a whole, Jalen Ramsey is the lowest on the totem pole with 44 total tackles. The rest of them, you got a safety that has over 100 tackles. Now, y'all know football. You tell me, how crazy is that to have a safety that's linebacker numbers, to have over 100 tackles? So the point that I'm making here, a lot of yak is the reason why Green Bay does well. They get big plays downfield, but if they can't go downfield, what do? You got to drop the ball off into the flats. You got to drop it off into the flares, and you got to hope for those yards after the catch. You're not going to get those yards after the catch because these guys tackle too well, and they don't give up the ball deep. So they're going to have a running attack because they are going to slow up Aaron Rodgers in the passing attack.
We talked about Jalen Ramsey and the illustrious season he's having. I would say that, LeVar, you've been in your bag lately. You and your researcher done come with these notes, talking about Troy Hill and whatnot. I'm like, okay, LeVar, spend an extra time on prep. I hear you.
Dog.
Come on, man.
Look, we aren't
a
hardcore analysis show at times because we got to give y'all these opinions and these jokes. But if we can really quickly talk about why did the Rams dominate last week against the Seahawks? Because the Seahawks are used to living, thriving off of the big play. DK Metcalf for 50. Tyler Lockett for plus 40 to the house. But against the Rams, they were like, nah, if y'all gonna beat us, y'all gonna have to march methodically all the way down the field and hope for the best. I think methodically is a word. Somebody correct me though.
You made up a word.
I liked it.
Methodically,
the last page of the dictionary, he just added one.
And one dictionary. Take that. That's my co-host, fool.
Hey,
Webster.
give me the foul, man. Methodically. Methodically?
Yes.
Methodically and methodology.
No, it's okay. Just move on.
No, I mean,
it's okay. We got you. We understood.
Just because I write books, don't know I know the words in the books. Okay, let's not get it twisted.
Okay.
Look, the fact of the matter is the Rams are going to force the Packers to move. I'm not using that word again because I'm still confused.
Okay?
They're going to force them to move incrementally. There we go.
One syllable words this morning forward.
They're going to force them to inch down the field. Y'all know what I'm saying. Marcellus, you go ahead.
Yes, I shall. You see how that? Yes, I shall. One syllable. Nah, let's be real. Aaron Rodgers, y'all act like he's scared of some top defense showing up. He's faced one top 5 scoring defense this season. Week 3 at the Saints, number 5 scoring defense. Oh, he lit the Saints up. 21-32, 283, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 125 passer rating. More important is the fact that that's the most points given up by the Saints all season. And now he's going to see a Rams defense that is strong. We get it. But they're compromised, guys. And the last thing is, just to push back at my man, Mr. Arrington, I don't think that tackles is a great measurement for cornerbacks or even safeties, being real. Because think about it, if you're Jalen Ramsey, they don't throw the ball your way because you're so tremendous. So what that means is fewer picks and fewer tackles because there are fewer opportunities. You cut off half the field, so all the action usually happens away from you. All of that said, I'm looking at an Aaron Rodgers who, of all the quarterbacks, look at this nugget. The last 5 quarterbacks to lead the NFL, and Aaron Rodgers is one of them, in completion percentage, passing touchdowns, and passer rating in the same season, like Aaron Rodgers just did, they all went to the Super Bowl. You think Aaron Rodgers is sitting there scared of a beat-up defense that's coming in with a compromised quarterback as well? I don't think he is.
How you try to move the goalposts, but I'm going to push back and say this.
Okay, push.
The fact that the secondary tackles is really, you got to think about this. When Aaron Rodgers has not had the most prolific game of throwing the ball, what has he had to bail him out? His running game.
Yeah, of course.
His running game has been good. He's got 3 backs. Aaron Jones, to me, is right up there with Kamara in terms of how and Henry as best in the league, most dynamic in the league. The run has been there to bail him out. So when you're able to run the ball, missile screens, slip screens, jet sweeps, different things like that are fast developing plays, it's not going to be your defensive front that's going to make those plays. It's going to be your secondary guys. And that's why it's critically important to look at the fact that you have big, strong secondary guys that are willing to play physical football. It's going to change the dimensions of the game for Green Bay. They're going to have to be able to run the ball and establish the run to be able to open their passing game. And that's going to be very difficult. And those triple teams, double teams, hitting down on the Terminator's ribs, that's okay. Protect your ribs, because as long as you're eating up 2 and 3 guys, Brockers and other guys in the secondary, the safeties, the linebackers, they're going to be able to play the run while 3 and 4 guys are getting ate up by the Terminator. He does not have to have a big game. He can protect himself. His presence will, something that didn't happen in your career, Marcellus, I might add. He will not demand 3 to 4 guys to block him, even with a messed up rib.
Boy, you better check my film. I ain't even got to speak on that.
I was at a Pro Bowl with you. I was there with you.
I had my moments, boy. I was out there.
I know you had
Okay,
game.
hold on now. You talking about he going to eat up 2 or 3 blockers.
Oh, he will.
We're not
He will.
Yeah, but for how long? Guess what? They're going to be eating
Long
up
enough.
his ribs. Yum, yum, yum. What's the, boy, 900 pounds before force, before momentum hit you? How long is that going to last, big dog? Last
That's
point
the
I have.
Terminator, bruh.
Yeah,
You got to expect the unexpected with him.
Oh, that's
He's going to
great.
come with a game plan that's going to work for him, even under the circumstances of an injured rib. You got to believe that about
Aaron. You sound like
Aaron
a
Donald.
coach that turned into white noise saying stuff like that.
That's just how us Pittsburgh dudes roll. We just roll like that. We built different. That's
Look,
all.
you can be built different all you want as an individual tremendous player, Aaron Donald. But the Rams, as a whole, this team has only played one team that had a top 5 passer rating quarterback. One. And guess who you're playing this week? The king of all passing ratings is Aaron Rodgers. So look at this. The Rams, when they faced that quarterback, they gave up the most points they gave up all year. So the point is, you're playing against somebody that you haven't faced this year. And it ain't going to work.
How that O-line look?
I'm pacing myself. I'm going to get him in the next block. Pick your battles. Yeah.
Pick your battles and pick your syllables as well.
I got it.
Houston has a big James Harden problem. We'll tell you if he's hurt his reputation this season. That's next. Speak for yourself.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. Russell Wilson had a game to forget with an interception and a season-low 11 completions in last week's playoff loss to the Rams. Well, now Brian Schottenheimer is out as the Seahawks offensive coordinator for what the team called, quote, philosophical differences. Now, let's take a look at how Russ and the offense struggled in the second half of the season. Their points per game were significantly down, and Wilson went from 28 touchdown passes in the first 8 games to half that number in the team's final 9 games. Not looking good. Well, LeVar Arrington is back with us looking good, LeVar. But Marcellus, should Russell Wilson get a pass for the team's offensive struggles?
Not only should he, but he just did, obviously, because the scapegoat in this situation was their offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer. Shout out to Shotty, who was a coach when I was in San Diego as well, coached up young Drew Brees and young Phillip Rivers. He knows how to coach. But don't take my word for it. How about the fact that young Schottenheimer actually led the Seahawks to the most points scored in franchise history? Where I'm from, that sounds like a get-out-of-jail-free card if they're going to try and scapegoat you, but they didn't. And then they fire him or state philosophical differences, but then quoted saying, fantastic person and coach. So why you let him go? Because in the NFL, coaches are hired by their performance. How do you know how a coach performs? He's not blocking and tackling. It's by his philosophy and also by the numbers. Oh, let's look at the numbers. In terms of him being the offensive coordinator in Seattle, top 10 scoring offense every single year. So, yeah, Russell Wilson's going to get a pass, but Brian Schottenheimer has just become the scapegoat. Acho, we know in the real world, right now, this time of year, it's cuffing season, especially in them cold weather parts. You know what I'm saying? Find you your boo and boo up right now. But in L.A., since it's warm, you ain't got a cuff like this. It's scapegoat season in the NFL right now because it makes no sense. The first 2 years Shotty's there, hey, we got to fix our running game. We did. #1 running offense for one of those years. Oh, then we didn't get the results we wanted. Let's flip it. Let Russ cook. And they did let Russ cook. They were setting NFL records through the first 10 weeks. And all of a sudden, the offense becomes stagnant. They didn't make the proper adjustments. That doesn't just fall on Shotty. That falls on Pete Carroll as well. But Pete Carroll has the extension to 2025. And John Snyder, the GM, has an extension to 2025. So obviously, they're not the ones to go. And we're not going to get rid of Russell Wilson. We know he's still an MVP candidate no matter how he plays down the stretch. So the scapegoat becomes Brian Shotty, and Russ gets his pass.
Everything was good and accurate with your take except one thing. It's still quarantine cuffing season out in LA, dog, okay? It's lonely in them streets, okay? Russell Wilson did get a pass, but he should not get a pass. And he shouldn't because you asked for this, Russ. You can't come out here and say you want to cook. Hey, Pete Carroll, this is what I want. This is how I want it. And then mess up what goes down in the kitchen. You cannot do that. Before the third week of the season, Russell Wilson goes out and says, I don't just want a vote as far as MVP. I want to win the whole award. You told the whole world your goals and objectives. Before the season started, Pete Carroll, head coach, based on his private discussions with Russell Wilson, said, Russ is going to do everything he can, and we're going to give him every opportunity to kick butt. So going into the season, Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, they had their conversations about how they wanted the season to look. Russell Wilson didn't go out there and execute. The Seahawks didn't stop letting Russ cook because all of a sudden they woke up one day, you know what? I don't feel like letting Russ cook today. No, Russell Wilson had 7 turnovers and 2 touchdowns in 2 consecutive games cumulatively. Russell Wilson played terrible against the Rams, played terrible against the Bills, and they were like, you know what? We are forced to stop Russell Wilson from cooking. This isn't by choice, it's by force. So I blame Russell Wilson for the Seahawks struggles because also you can't be the third highest paid and not get the blame. We spent 3 months on this show, at least Marcellus Wiley did, blaming Carson Wentz for the Eagles' struggles because of how much money he was commanding. Not because other people weren't at fault, but because when you making top dollar, you deserve an excess amount of the blame. Russell Wilson, making top dollar, he got to get top blame as well.
No way. He doesn't get top blame, and it's a very simple discussion.
Please.
He doesn't make the decisions. All right. If he says, hey, I'm Russell Wilson, I'm an MVP candidate, I want to be able to cook. Let me cook. Give me the ingredients. Give me the chef apron. Let me go out here and let me cook. That's still the coach's decision to allow for that to take place. So if I decided, it's interesting, right? I tell my kids want to get up on their own time. I tell them you got to get up in time enough to make your bed, brush your teeth, get your mind right, maybe have a glass of orange juice before you start school, all right? And that's homeschool, all right? It's my responsibility to make the decision as to if I am going to leave it up to them to be responsible enough to handle their duties in the morning or not. If they fail, it doesn't fall on them. It falls on me. Because I am the one that has to make the decision that ultimately dictates the success or failure of what they're doing pattern-wise in the structure of my home. And the structure of that Seattle Seahawks home, Russell Wilson has proven that he's an elite football player. Russell Wilson has gotten elite money, like you said, Acho. And Russell Wilson has proven that he can be the franchise quarterback for this Seahawks team. Meaning, if anything goes wrong, you can blame Russell Wilson, but as long as you can use those tags, those stamps that I just gave you, then someone else will indeed be gone from the job that they had if they underperform.
Nah, LA, I push back. And I push, your take confused me a little bit, but I push back with the early part of the take.
It might be over your head.
Nah, come on. You ain't got no kid. Come on. Hard to get over my head. I'm still in that. Hard to do that. My issue, LA, is that you can't have it both ways. You can't treat Russell Wilson like both the GOAT and the kid. And I'm not talking about kid as in a baby goat. We can't say that Russell Wilson, the winningest quarterback since he entered into the National Football League, second winningest only to Tom Brady. We can't say Russell Wilson, one of the greatest passer ratings in NFL history. Russell Wilson, one of the greatest quarterbacks of this generation. But wait, it's not Russell Wilson's fault. I mean, it's just a rush. Like, we can't do that. Remember, when you go off to college, you finally leave your parents' house. You know, when you're in your parents' house, it's my rules, son. Whatever I say, you do. Okay, well, it's not. I'm leaving. I'm going back to college. When I'm in college, I do what I want to do. Months go by. Hey, Dad, can you send me some money, please? No, I thought you was grown. See, L.A., I thought Russell Wilson was grown. If Russell Wilson is grown, then we going to treat him like an adult. Not an adult. I'm going to do like an adult. If Russell Wilson is grown, that's what we going to do. So my issue, L.A., is I'm not going to let you treat, or not even you, because it's not really you doing it. It's more so the global persona of, oh, well, Russell Wilson is the GOAT. Yeah. Russell Wilson is one of the GOATs. But wait, it's not Russell Wilson's fault. Like, he didn't do any wrong. Nah,
I didn't say he's the GOAT, and I did not say that he is not culpable of any of the blame that's taking place. But what I'm saying is as long as you can say that he's still an elite player. Can you say that? Acho, is he an elite quarterback? Yes, no. Is he an elite quarterback? Yes, no. Yes? No?
Yes,
Nobody wants to answer?
Yes.
No, y'all don't want to answer? Is he an elite quarterback?
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course. Why are you asking
Okay.
that? You already know the answer.
I'm asking the question because it makes the point. It's not about treating him like he's a child and saying that, oh, he's a GOAT here, but we treat him like a child when it doesn't go correctly. The point that I'm making is if his value is on elite level as a player at the quarterback's position and you have underperformed as a team, you can put that on Russ all you want. And to go back to my point of where I'm joking with you, it may have been over your head because you don't have any kids. The point that I'm making is in the home that Pete Carroll has built, he has to be accountable for all of the decisions and the results that take place under his watchful eye. And he can't justify what he's doing by getting rid of Russell Wilson. So the best thing that he could do is if you got to do something to appease the fans or appease the people upstairs, it's got to be the offensive coordinator, because if you allowed him to go out there and do the cooking and it didn't work, then obviously we need to get somebody else in here that won't allow Russell Wilson to talk me into allowing him to go out there and do what he wants to do, because we're not getting the results that we're looking for.
Man, Acho, you going to let that man say you got a house and not a home because you don't have any kids? That's kind of jacked up. Look,
no, I didn't say that. I did not say that.
I know you didn't, but, I like my jokes. Let me just simplify what's going on up there in Seattle, because Pete Carroll and John Schneider, respect to both of you guys and your resumes, you formed an alliance. And I think what happened, this is when I knew it was a problem. And who's the scapegoat? Who is it going to be? Because Pete Carroll said on that pick 6 on the screen that it wasn't Russell Wilson's fault. Now, us as football players, we understand, hey, it's part on the receivers to block the corner that is guarding you in that position. But there were 784 screens this year, and not one of them was an interception. And when Pete Carroll made mention that it wasn't Russell Wilson's fault, I said, duck, Brian. Brian, duck. They are coming for you. Brian Schottenheimer did his best coaching job with Russell Wilson over these last 3 years. Average points per game ranking, average 8th in the NFL, but he has to go. All they want to do is force it down the throat of Russell Wilson and others that we are going to run the football, as stated by Pete Carroll, and run it without internal resistance. I think Russell Wilson and even Shotty were like, hey, we can still air this thing out, just do it differently. Unfortunately, the scapegoat situation occurred. It's not going to happen. Coming up, Lamar Jackson could have another obstacle besides the Bills Saturday. The snow. Let it snow, let it snow. We'll tell you if we're worried about his weather concerns. That's next. Speak for yourself. Saturday on Fox, the Rams take on the Packers. Coverage begins at 2:30 Eastern. Then on Sunday, Tom Brady, the GOAT, and the Bucs square off with Drew Brees, my dog, and the Saints at 6 Eastern. NFL Divisional Playoffs presented by TurboTax live on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. Lamar Jackson is leading his Ravens into Buffalo on Saturday. He won his first playoff game last week, but now he has something else in his way. The weather. There's a good chance of snow. Let it snow in Buffalo. And the reigning MVP is not happy about it. Take a listen.
How much experience do you have playing in the snow? And
Zero.
You've never done it?
Zero experience. I never got to play in the snow. Except my first time seeing snow in Louisville, but we had a snowball fight, so that's totally different from playing in it. But yeah, that definitely would be my first time playing football in the snow Saturday. If it does, hopefully it don't.
I love it. So, Acho, are you worried about Lamar's mindset after sharing his concerns about the snow?
Bro, how can you not like Lamar Jackson?
Man, that dude.
He said it snowed in Louisville. We just had a snowball fight. I'm not worried about the snow affecting his game, but I am worried about the stages before you play the game. You know this. Before you win the game on the field, you got to win the game in your head. My coach always said, Acho, don't let anything without a heartbeat beat you.
Yes.
Don't let anything without a heartbeat beat you. I'm telling y'all right now, playing in the cold like Marcellus brought up, like he was playing on the beach with his kids and his wife in the cold, it's a different beast now. I don't care what anybody says. It is a different beast. Playing in snow is only fun on video games. So if Lamar Jackson is already thinking about it on Tuesday before game week, it might have an effect for a little bit. It might have an effect for a heartbeat. When it comes down to it, the snow actually behooves the Ravens and their style of play as far as ground and pound, running the ball, leading the NFL in rushing. So it actually serves them more than it serves the opponent. But I still don't know how I feel about Lamar speaking that into existence. Because if you speak the fact of you've never played in snow before and you hope it doesn't snow, I think that might begin to affect your play, maybe, just maybe.
Oh, man, look, obviously I played in Buffalo, so I played in the snow. Also in college in New York City as well. I love the fact that you talked about how the preparation is the separation. Let's focus in on the mindset. Because being a Buffalo Bill, we had a huge advantage, not because we practiced and played in the snow more than our opponents, it's because we were prepared for it, but not preoccupied by it. So in your week of preparation, if you're Lamar Jackson, if you just make simple mention of it like he did, as an opponent that was playing in Buffalo, I would think he's not fazed by it. You know who is fazed by it? There are two guys, and we saw them both. Pre-game, he came out shirtless or half shirt and just greased up like, oh, this ain't nothing. I'm about to show y'all this ain't nothing. Second, third quarter, you would see him, and you're looking at his ear pads, and they're charred. You know why? Because the whole time on the sideline, he's putting his helmet over there in the heat, over there just bundled up by the heat, and you're going to be there for a second or two. You remember those days? You stay too long, it will burn your outfit. It will burn the uniform. Or the other guy, Michelin man. Hey, you know what? It is cold. I'm ready. And we're like, dog, you can't play football like that. Lamar Jackson doesn't seem like either one of those extremes. So as long as he's prepared for it, like, yo, I'm walking into something. Because we felt the same way every day in practice. We would sit there, man, it's cold as hell. It's cold as hell. It's cold as hell. And then we went out there, we were okay. Not preoccupied, just prepared for it. He sounds just prepared for it.
But if you're Lamar Jackson, you got to be conscious of this. You can only simulate so many things. Remember, if you were playing in a game and you knew it was going to rain that day, your coach would give the quarterback a bucket of water, typically have somebody dunk the ball into a bucket of water. Now, hey, quarterback, get used to throwing with the wet ball. Yeah. Receivers, get used to catching with the wet ball. You can't simulate the snow. I played in Philly. I played in the most notorious snow game of all time. You remember the Lions game, 8 inches of snow on the field, 2014. You couldn't move in that. There's no way to simulate that. And so if I'm a Ravens fan, I'm just conscious of like, uh-oh, Lamar. So you ain't never played in snow before? Or like you ain't never done no handoffs or exchanges in the snow before? Like what's the difference? Don't mess around and have to change your cleats in the middle of the game like we've seen players have to do before.
And Lamar.
That might have been Lamar. Yeah,
it was Lamar.
I think that was Lamar Jackson.
It was.
When you're playing in different elements, in different terrains, things are just a little bit different. So I'm not necessarily concerned about the mindset. I'm concerned about how the mindset will affect the action.
Okay, let's talk about that action. Is Lamar Jackson fast? Hell yeah. Who has the advantage in the snow? Offense or defense? Offense.
Know where you're going.
You know where you're going. Boy, you know what's neutralized in the snow? Pass rush. There's no traction. There's a 300-pound man pushing against you. You're not going as fast as you want to, and you have no traction. Pass rush neutralized. Lamar Jackson knows where he's going. Lamar Jackson has started 17 career games in temperatures 50 degrees or low or below. 16-1. 9 career games, 40 degrees or below. 8-1. Oh, averaging 32 points a game. That will get it done in Buffalo in the snow. We'll see. Coming up, we got huge breaking news. James Harden is on the move. James Harden is on the move, y'all. We'll break it all down next. Speak for yourself. Man, got what he wanted, huh?
We have breaking news in the NBA. James Harden, he got his wish. Well, it's reported that Harden has been traded to the Nets to form a super team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. It's a 4-team deal with the Rockets getting a ton back, including Victor Oladipo from the Pacers, and multiple first-round picks for the 8-time All-Star. Obviously, we had to bring in NBA analyst Slick Rick back to us to get his reaction. So, Slick, what is your reaction to this huge trade?
The Brooklyn Nets have decided that, you know what, nobody's playing defense in the league. Maybe we can win it just by playing all offense. The deal includes 2 of their best defensive players, Taurean Prince and Jarrett Allen. The last of configuration that I saw going to Cleveland. Karis LeVert, meanwhile, is basically averaging the same thing that James Harden is and has demonstrated that he's willing to come off the bench. So I get it from the Houston Rockets standpoint. I guess I get it from the Cleveland Cavaliers standpoint in terms of that they're adding yet another center. But, you know, let's keep just churning it and hoping something comes out of it. But the Brooklyn Nets were not a good defensive team, in large part because they do not have good defensive players. And now they have fewer of those. So while it looks very exciting, and I'm sure anybody who plays fantasy basketball is thinking they've just walked into the finals, I don't see that it solves any of the problems that they had. In spite of the firepower of Kyrie and KD and how good they are, their team chemistry wasn't good, their defense wasn't good, and this doesn't change that equation whatsoever.
Slick, I feel you. I'm going to take this approach. I said this before. If there can be addition by subtraction, there can be subtraction by addition. I don't love two aspects of it, Slick. The first aspect is James Harden just showed everybody on a national stage that you can truly baby your way out of an organization. If it gets too tough and you don't want to deal with it, you can just force the other team's hand if you just stop trying and stop showing up. Literally, stop showing up. The second aspect of it is you can have a compilation of a lot of great individuals and not have a great team. Like, you can have a compilation of a lot of individual talent, but you might not have the greatest compilation of a team. And at the end of the day, basketball is a team sport. So bring all the all-stars and superstars you want at certain times. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. I'm always reminded of the 04 Pistons or the 03 Pistons going up against the Lakers. It would have been 04. The Lakers had Gary Payton, Karl Malone, Shaq, the late, great Kobe Bryant. But the Pistons had a great team, and y'all remember how that one worked out. So I am not going to jump on the Brooklyn Nets train just yet, not just because they got an all-star.
I'm going to be real. I was already on the Brooklyn Nets train, a little bumpier ride than I expected, but now this train is going faster. I don't know to what degree, to what miles per hour did it just increase, but let's be real about this in the NBA. You talked about, hey, let's just play offense and see where it gets us. How about an NBA that went from big threes and super teams to down to dynamic duos and others? So when you look at the Lakers and you look at the Clippers and the front runners, whoever we're thinking that will make it to the finals, a lot of dynamic duos out there. Now you got a real big three. So you zig when everyone else is zagging. That's interesting. I had some criticism, harsh criticism for James Harden, who I respect fully on the court, but not the way he went about his business. But I will even criticize my take that was criticizing James Harden's actions. Let's just use my own social experience as an example. I've been a bad boyfriend to Kim, but then I've been a good boyfriend to the rest of them. You ever just get in a certain scope, in a certain way of acting, just so you can get what you want? Then when you get what you want, you stop acting that same way. Maybe James Harden, and this is interesting, I want to ask you this, Slick Rick. Kyrie Irving in his absence, was there any connection towards the leverage of the opportunity of acquiring James Harden in this position? Kyrie disappears, and all of a sudden you can't ask Brooklyn for everything because, look, they're already wounded over there. Did that play a part in this whole transaction?
Marcellus, you're asking me to look into the mind of Kyrie the artiste. That's like asking me, why did Picasso paint that the way that he did? I wouldn't begin to possibly try to answer that question. There's a lot of things going on with Kyrie Irving. I don't believe that was one of them, that this was a protest. Until you get James Harden here, I'm going to find other reasons or other things to do, including a birthday party. No, I don't believe that was an element. But Marcellus, to your point about a big three, I really believe that if we look closely at how championships have been won the last couple of years, that it's a misnomer to think that big threes have won it. What was the big threes Lakers? What was the Lakers' big three this past year? They really didn't have one. No. It was a collection of great players around a LeBron James and an Anthony Davis who fit. And by the way, were both two-way players, so they could lead you at both ends of the floor. Look at the Toronto Raptors. What was their big three? Really, there wasn't one. There was an amalgam of players who contributed. I dare say even the Golden State Warriors. You look at them with Draymond and Steph now. That's a big two. They should be dynamic again. They're not. Why? Because they don't have the same depth and versatility. And Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre don't fit the way Klay Thompson did with Draymond and Steph. So looking at it, yes, they're big names. Yes, it's a powerful offensive team. But do those pieces actually fit together? I immediately, when this happened, and I always reference this, Carmelo Anthony and Allen Iverson once upon a time were brought together with the Denver Nuggets. And everybody was like, whoa, stand back, watch out, see where they go. They didn't go anywhere because while they're both great individual players, their games didn't necessarily fit. And I brought up usage rate and you guys bagged me, but Harden's usage rate went down this year with the Rockets. Just imagine where it's going to go if he's playing with KD and Kyrie. I just don't see how a brand new Steve Nash, even with Mike D'Antoni next to him and his relationship with Harden, is going to make this work to the level that people expect. Because to you, Marcellus, like you already have them, they're in the finals. I mean, I've already seen that on Twitter. I don't believe that they are a finals type team, and yet that's what the expectation is.
Agree with you, Slick. Let's talk about this, though. We talk about dynamic duos and dynamic trios. Can we talk about dynamic egos? We talk about the duos and the trios. We have to talk about the egos. Look at the NBA champions the last several years. The Lakers, there really was no ego on that team because everybody knew who the captain was. The Raptors, there was no ego on that team because everybody knew who the captain was. Then you want to talk about the Warriors when Kevin Durant joined that squad. Steph Curry, a two-time MVP. He could have said, no, this is my team, but he deferred to Kevin Durant and said, hey, KD, you can run the show, although Steph clearly could have and is capable of running the show. When you talk about this Brooklyn team, whose team is it? Because, again, there is only one basketball, a lot of weapons, a lot of threats who can use that basketball to score a lot of points. But whose team is it? As we acknowledge dynamic duos and as we acknowledge dynamic trios, we also have to pay attention to all of those dynamic egos.
Interesting point right there. But I have to push back because we know that big threes have won championships. Obviously, you're talking about the Lakers now, but look at LeBron James a decade ago was winning championships in a big three situation. And I push back on it. Well, the last 2 years, we haven't seen a big three out there winning a championship. Well, I would question, was there even a big three out there to face? Look at last year, which was a different year, weird year. And the Lakers didn't face any big threes. They faced duos. Portland, y'all know what I'm talking about. Houston, Denver, Miami. I mean, Miami tried to come with like a quad, a Voltron, but that wasn't even a dynamic duo necessarily. And then you go the year before, the Raptors, who do they face? The wounded Golden State Warriors. So it's... When they had a big three in Golden State, KD, Steph, and Clay, boy, stop. Y'all know how that turned out. So I'm just thinking right now, egos, they're interesting because we're all...
Huge. They're huge.
They're huge, but they are... Look, you and I both have egos, but they integrate well. Now, how do they integrate in those three egos?
You got to come back to this one. You got to come back to this one. It goes
based on how secure you are and who you are, how secure you are in your legacy, and how secure you are to the point where you will put this in front of you. I think that will work in Brooklyn, but hey, both of us, actually all three of us, will be watching that to see if it ever happens. Coming up, we've got much, much more on this huge breaking news. James Harden is on the move. That's next. Speak for yourself while Acho rubs his hands. Continuing with our huge breaking news right now, James Harden has been traded to the Nets to form a super team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Woo! It's a 4-team deal with the Rockets getting a ton of draft picks. Rick is back with us, Slick Rick, but Acho, how good will this team be?
I think this team will let down the expectations that everyone has set for them. I mean, Sal, you already came up here and said there's championship expectations.
Yes.
Clearly, there are championship aspirations when you put KD with Kyrie, with Harden. But I got to get back to the point is, again, there will be subtraction by addition. Marcellus, you just said that you have an ego, I have an ego when we came on this show. Yes, but sooner or later, individuals have to figure out how and when am I going to defer. When I first came on the show, I said, hey, Marcellus, it's your show. You read the scripts, you do you. You've now realized over the last couple months, hey, Acho, I like your creative energy. You do you at times as far as how you want to orchestrate the show together. We understand how to defer to the other person to make this team, this show work as best as it can be. I've said this before, I will say it again. we underestimate how valuable Steph Curry was to the Warriors dynasty with Kevin Durant. Because if Steph Curry would have had the ego that we know a Russell Westbrook to have on the court, if Steph Curry would have had the ego or ball dominance that we know a James Harden to have on the court, then I don't think that Kevin Durant would have thrived and the Warriors would have won in the manner that they did. So now fast forward, talk James Harden, talk Kevin Durant, talk Kyrie Irving. We already know Kyrie got an ego. We already know Kyrie thinks differently. We know for certain Kevin Durant has an ego. We know Kevin Durant thinks differently. We always thought James Harden was a little more chill, a little more reserved. But the last 3 months have shown us, wait a second now, maybe James Harden has a little bit more of an ego than we thought. Maybe James Harden's a little bit different of a character than we thought. I don't see how you can combine all these cast of characters with cast of strong personalities and egos and lack of an ability to defer and expect them to win it all immediately. I don't see how it happens.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. And that's not just on the Rockets end of things, but it's on the Nets, because weren't we talking about them prior to this, coming into the season with KD and Kyrie and all that firepower, that they were going to be a title contender? And the bloom came off of that rose awfully quickly. And so I understand why, having mortgaged their future, that the time is now, that Sean Marks would say, well, let's go and add something else to the equation. It can't get worse, because their chemistry was negatively affected because of what players, and they got rid of most of them, guys that what they accomplished without Kyrie or KD. And so there was a little bit of a pushback with both of those guys in and out of the lineup, that guys wanted to shine. Guys wanted, hey, a year ago, before these guys were here or could play, we were getting something done. So they rearranged the deck chairs, whether it's on the Titanic or whether it's on a cruise ship. We're going to find that out. But ultimately, I understand why Brooklyn did it. But here's the other element that runs counter. One, yes, it's wide open this year. Other than the Lakers in the East, I don't know that there's a favorite team. So I can see why they'd say, why not us? But we have the COVID issue. We don't have a whole lot of practice time. The things that they desperately need to get on the same page in short order is simply not going to be available this season.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't want us to misconstrue, to read Kyrie's absence as a lack of chemistry. I mean, they played 12 games right now. So much basketball is in front of this team in terms of chemistry. That's one thing that time can help, if not solve, in terms of them playing together. You got 2 of the 3 guys who have played together before already. Like, this is reuniting KD with James Harden. So there's a certain respect there. 2 of the 3 guys are best basketball buddies in terms of how they just see the game and want to go.
I like your math.
Yeah.
2 out of 3.
Hold on, we're not talking about
still that outlier.
Well, I've been on teams before, and it's never uniform. It's never absolute. And even when you're talking about the Miami Heat situation, they had some issues in transition, and they didn't fully live up to it, but they still had championship expectations, and they still won championships half the time. Plus, you got a coach like Steve Nash. Look, no matter what, he gonna smell the BS coming. And then when he calls it out, you can't frown or clown him, because look at his resume and look at the way he's going to communicate that. It's a lot of runway in between now and championship time. So let's see what this team can glue together. But they got the pieces that you want to glue together.
But big dog, there has to be a leader. That's
No,
what I
it
think that there
doesn't.
does.
What?
Look at all the NBA championship teams. Either the leader is the coach or the leader is a player.
Well,
whether it's LeBron,
okay, give
whether
it
it's
to Nash.
Kawhi,
Nash can't be a
whether
leader.
it was KD.
Nash can't be a
But
leader.
Can this leader bring you were talking about Nash like he's Popovich. You talking like Nash
I'm
like
not
he's
saying it
has a
Oh, you sound like the guy that shot Steve Kerr down. Steve Kerr down in 12 games. You shot him down, huh? How'd that turn out?
I'm saying, who was the leader of that team? Steph Curry was the leader of that team.
Yeah, but Kevin Durant was the best player, right?
But there's a difference between, I don't care about the best players.
You talking about who's stirring it. I'm talking about who's doing it. Well, I don't want to argue something I don't have the evidence for right now. They're going to play the evidence out for us right before our very eyes. But trust me, I'm going to be laughing last when I talk about this super team now in championship contention. Coming up, we're not done talking about James Harden. Uncle Jimmy has more to say. That's next as Acho and I beef. See? Speak for yourself. Who's the leader? Before we go, we gave you our thoughts on the blockbuster trade sending James Harden to the Nets, but now Uncle Jimmy has something to say. Go ahead, Smokey.
Listen here. Confucius say that one should never let one's nose get so finely tuned until it cannot appreciate the smell of hogs. You know what that means?
Nope. No.
That means that the same God that brought you up is the same God that'll bring your ass down.
That's real. Yeah.
James Harden running around in Houston talking about he going through hard times, but he's steadily getting fat as hell. I don't know everything, but that sounds like an oxymoron to me.
That's fair.
Kind of sound like being an arrogant bum. Meaning James Harden and Kyrie Irving, they might be unhappy, but ain't neither one of them meant no meal. So I don't know what the hell they complaining about.
I've heard that before. All right, Fox Bet Live, you're next. Go ahead.